Well, looking back on Xavier Gray's time here at Jackson, it really was quite a journey. You know, he showed a lot of potential as a freshman, but you know, he was really heavy and it was hard to keep him on the field for a long time. His sophomore year, I know he got over 480 pounds and you know, it started to become not about football, but about just his way of life and what his future looked like.
Unfortunately for him, you know, he did have a tragedy in his life with his losing his father, who again was a good-sized man as far as height and weight goes, and it really was a turning point for X himself. It was just something that inspired him to really take a turn to look at himself and realize some of the changes that he has to make in his life.
I think going into his junior year, something started to click and he got down under 400 pounds. You know, he had great support from his mom and his family. And, you know, then we could start playing him. He lettered as a defensive lineman. We could get him in 10, 15 plays. And he took off and he worked with our coaching staff who did a great job helping him with cardio. But really it was Xavier and his decision with the support of his mom and his family that turned it around, and he played this past year at 315, and boy was he good, and I think his best days are still ahead of him.
I believe sky's the limit for him with his work ethic, with his will, with his determination, that I could see him also playing in the next level, even in the NFL.
I know we're talking football, but this is a life story, and he doesn't accomplish this without his family behind him. Well, you know, football is a very little part of this, and his family and his own discipline and his own characteristics are the big story.
Chris is a type of kid that loves to compete.
Chris was born premature. He suffered from spina bifida. He underwent spinal surgery when he was really young, and that caused him to lose the feeling in his lower body, which confined him to a wheelchair.
Chris competes in 3 of the 4 wheelchair events. He competes in the 100-meter dash, he competes in the 400-meter dash, and the 800-meter run.
Well, Chris was a 6-time state qualifier his freshman and sophomore season. Last year, something went wrong with his kidneys. He had to undergo numerous surgeries, and that kept him out the whole season. He also had suffered from a torn labrum, but he decided to put off surgery on that so he could compete in track and field.
It just made him a little more steadfast and stronger to make sure that he had his senior year where he went back to the state and was able to compete. One thing that maybe stuck out the most was the time that at the Stark County meet. And he finished the race, but when he saw another wheeled athlete that was not having such a good race, he stayed out on the track. He helped the person get around the track, and you talk about a kid that just didn't matter to him because he wanted to help that person the most. He put his personal feelings aside. He knew that this was probably one of the times that he could help somebody, and knew that here's my chance to give back a little bit to the sport and help somebody who's another wheeled athlete coming up through the ranks.
That taught a lesson, I think, for kids who were competing in that race, adults who were there, a kid with who overcame, you know, the physical challenges he had, to be able to do that, even with a torn labrum. That said a lot about him.